The massive crystalline chamber stretched endlessly in all directions, its translucent walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Commander Lee Hyun felt small, standing on the circular platform at its center, surrounded by beings that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. His uniform, crisp and military precise, seemed almost primitive compared to the advanced forms around him. The Zephyrians towered above him, like living mountains of blue crystal. Their bodies caught and refracted light in patterns that hurt human eyes to follow. Each movement sent cascades of cold blue radiance across the chamber walls. They had no faces as humans understood them, but their thoughts projected directly into Lee Hyun's mind with the weight of ancient authority. Behind them, the collective maintained perfect formation. Thousands of identical beings stood in rows, their gray skins smooth and featureless. When they spoke, every mouth moved in perfect unison, creating a sound like an ocean wave breaking against stone. Their shared consciousness was older than human civilization, and their patience was infinite. Most terrifying of all were the architects. They existed as pure energy, manifesting as shifting columns of golden light that pulsed with their emotions. They had transcended physical form long before Earth's sun had finished forming. To them, flesh and blood species were little more than interesting bacteria. Commander Lee Hyun of the species called humanity, the collective intoned their 1,000 voices, creating harmonics that vibrated through the crystal floor. You stand accused of representing a chaotic and dangerous element in our ordered galaxy. Lee Hyun straightened his shoulders. He had known this moment would come. Earth's rapid expansion into space, their military technology, their refusal to submit to Galactic Lit, had all led to this tribunal. I represent the human race with pride, he said simply. A Zephyrian stepped forward, its crystal body ringing like a bell. Pride, it projected into his mind. The same pride that led your species to wage war upon itself for millennia. The same pride that drove you to poison your own world with toxins and radiation. From the observation gallery above, Captain Park Soo watched the proceedings with growing anger. She had served under Lee Hyun for 5 years, had seen him lead rescue missions to save alien civilians, had watched him negotiate peaceful solutions to border disputes. The Council's accusations felt like lies. Admiral Kim Tae sat beside her, his weathered face carved from stone. At 65, he had seen humanity's rise from a single planet to a stellar power. He had commanded fleets in defensive wars, had built the colonies that now stretched across 40 systems. His entire life's work was being judged by beings who had never known struggle, never fought for survival. Your expansion is too rapid, an architect pulsed, its golden form brightening with disapproval. In merely 2 centuries, you have claimed territory that stable species take millennia to settle. Your growth pattern threatens the established order. We settle empty worlds, Lee Hyun replied. We harm no one. You arm yourselves beyond all reason, the collective responded. Your warships carry weapons capable of destroying planets. Your soldiers train constantly for battles that may never come. This militaristic obsession marks you as a threat. In the gallery, Dr. Cho Min leaned forward. As Earth's chief scientist, she understood the real reason behind the Council's fear. Humanity had developed faster than light travel in less than 50 years. They had mastered genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, and quantum mechanics with unprecedented speed. The ancient races had taken millions of years to achieve what humans accomplished in centuries. We defend ourselves, Lee Hyun said. Every species has that right. Rights are earned through wisdom and restraint, a Zephyrian rang out. You demonstrate neither. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your histories celebrate conquerors. Your very language contains thousands of words for warfare and only dozens for peace. Admiral Kim Tae rose from his seat. The gallery had been meant for observers only, but he could remain silent no longer. You speak of peace, he called down to the tribunal. Where was your peace when the Corvin plague swept through the outer systems? Where was your wisdom when the stellar pirates raided defenseless colonies? The council turned their attention to the admiral. The collective spoke as one. Those matters did not concern the established order, but they concerned us, Kimte continued, his voice echoing in the crystal chamber. Human ships responded. Human doctors found the cure. Human soldiers stopped the raiders. We did what you would not. Unauthorized intervention, an architect pulsed angrily. You exceed your authority. We saved lives. You disrupted the natural order of events. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Captain Park Sue felt her heart sink as she finally understood. This was not about humanity's flaws or dangers. This was about control. The Council feared any species that might challenge their authority, that might offer an alternative to their cold, distant rule. Li Hyun stood straighter as the collective delivered their verdict. The species known as humanity is judged unworthy of membership in galactic civilization. You will be contained within your home system until you learn proper restraint. 50 years of isolation will provide adequate time for reflection and growth, and, if we refuse, Admiral Kimte demanded. The architects flared brighter. Refusal means extinction. A shimmering energy barrier began to form around the chamber's edges, a demonstration of the power that would soon cage Earth's entire solar system. Li Hyan watched the light patterns dance, thinking of his daughter, who would grow up in captivity, of the colonies that would be abandoned, of the dreams that would die behind an energy wall. We are what we are, Admiral Kimte said quietly. We won't apologize for surviving. As the barriers solidified around Seoul, Dr. Cho Min was already planning humanity's response. 50 years seemed like a long time to beings that lived for eons. To humans, it was just long enough to prepare for war. The silence beyond Neptune was deafening. Captain Yoon Hye floated in her command pod, watching through reinforced glass as massive construction robots put the finishing touches on humanity's greatest secret. The shipyard stretched for hundreds of kilometers, hidden in the shadow of the ice giant where no alien probe would think to look. 30 years had passed since the barrier fell around Earth's solar system. 30 years of apparent quiet that had fooled the entire galaxy into thinking humanity had either given up or destroyed itself. The Council's monitoring stations detected no signals, no ship movements, no signs of the chaotic species that had once threatened their order. They were looking in the wrong places. Final weapon test complete, announced Lieutenant Kim Bo from her station. The young officer had been born after the barrier's creation, raised in the underground cities that now honeycombed every planet and moon in the solar system. To her, the galaxy beyond was just a story, but the mission to break free was everything. Yoon Hye activated her communication system. Admiral Kong Ben, the Phoenix-class destroyers are ready for your inspection. Miles away, deeper in the shipyards, Admiral Kang Ben moved through corridors that hummed with barely contained power. At 50, he was one of the few military leaders who remembered life before the barrier. The memory of that humiliation burned in his chest every day, driving him to push humanity's technology beyond all previous limits. The ships floating around him were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sleek and deadly, they combined human ingenuity with 30 years of stolen alien technology. Every Council probe that had approached the barrier had been secretly captured, stripped of its secrets, and sent back with false data about humanity's supposed decline. 200 vessels, he murmured to his aide, Colonel Nam Jae. The scarred officer had lost his left eye in the barrier's construction, when a power surge had nearly killed the entire engineering team. His face bore the marks of humanity's struggle, but his spirit remained unbroken. Each one capable of matching a Council dreadnought, Nam Jae replied, consulting his holographic display. The data streams showed weapon capabilities, shield strengths, and tactical systems that would have seemed impossible 3 decades ago. Project Phoenix has exceeded all expectations. Deep beneath Earth's surface, President Oda walked through the command center that had become humanity's true capital. The old surface cities remained active, maintaining the illusion of normal life for any alien observers. But the real work happened here. In tunnels carved from solid rock and shielded from any form of detection. She paused before a massive holographic display showing the entire solar system. Red dots marked the positions of human fleets, hidden behind asteroids, cloaked in the radiation shadows of gas giants, or nestled in the ice fields of the outer system. Blue lines indicated the barrier's energy patterns, mapped and analyzed until humanity understood them better than their creators. Madam President, called Dr. Li's son from across the command center. The elderly scientist had taken over Cho Min's work after her death, 15 years earlier, continuing the research that would eventually crack the Council's most advanced technologies. The barrier analysis is complete. We can bring it down from the inside, whenever you give the order. Oda smiled, but there was no warmth in it. She had been a young engineer when the barrier first appeared, forced to watch as human colonies beyond the system were abandoned to die. The Council had shown no mercy then, and she would show none now. Not yet, she replied. Let them continue believing we're beaten. In the asteroid belt, Commander Park Jin supervised the loading of the final quantum torpedoes into his fleet's weapons bays. These were humanity's masterpiece, weapons that could disrupt the molecular bonds holding Zephyrian crystal forms together. Years of study had revealed the aliens' weakness, hidden beneath their imposing appearance. Sir, his weapons officer called out, the collective killer virus is ready for deployment as well. Park Jin nodded grimly. The computer virus had taken 20 years to perfect, designed specifically to attack the neural links that held the hive mind together. Once deployed, it would spread through their network like wildfire, turning their greatest strength into a fatal weakness. Above Mars, hidden in the planet's magnetic field, Captain Choi A ran final tests on the dimensional anchors. These devices represented humanity's answer to the architects, forcing energy beings into physical form, where they could be destroyed by conventional weapons. The irony was perfect. The most advanced species in the galaxy would fall to simple kinetic rounds. The barrier shimmered in the distance, its energy patterns unchanged for 3 decades. 2 alien eyes. It contained a broken species learning humility. They could not see the fleets gathering in its shadow, or the weapons being prepared, or the burning desire for revenge that had united humanity like never before. War Code Red Protocols, uploaded to all vessels, reported Colonel Nam Jae, his scarred face reflecting the glow of tactical displays. Each ship now carried detailed battle plans, tailored to exploit every weakness humanity had discovered in their captors. President Da placed her hand on the command console's activation key. 30 years of preparation hung in the balance. 30 years of rage and determination focused into a single moment of decision. They wanted us to evolve, she said quietly, her words carried to every ship and station in the solar system. We did, into something they'll never expect. The barrier flickered as humanity prepared to remind the galaxy why they had been feared in the first place. The Council's probe drifted through empty space, its sensors scanning frantically for the energy barrier that should have contained humanity. For 50 years, where walls of pure force had once shimmered with deadly power, now only darkness remained. The automated scout transmitted its findings back to the distant council chambers, its mechanical voice carrying confusion that would soon turn to terror. Admiral Lim Jin watched the probe's frantic movements from the bridge of the Retribution. Humanity's greatest warship, the massive vessel hung invisible in space, its stealth systems perfected through decades of necessity. Around him, officers who had trained their entire lives for this moment stood ready at their stations. Sir, the probe is transmitting to Council. Space, reported Commander Han Sol, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. The veteran officer had spent 20 years preparing for this day, studying alien communication protocols and defense systems. They know the barrier is gone. Let them know, Lim Jin replied calmly. His weathered face showed no emotion, but inside, 30 years of rage burned like a star. He had been a young lieutenant when the barrier fell, forced to watch helplessly, as human colonies beyond the system were cut off and left to die. Now, at 55, he commanded the fleet that would settle that debt. Captain Bei Yun looked up from the tactical display, her scarred hands steady on the weapon controls. She had lost her parents in the abandoned colonies, had grown up in the underground cities, dreaming of revenge. All ships report ready, Admiral. The fleet is in position. Across the solar system, 200 warships waited in the darkness. Each one was a masterpiece of human engineering and stolen alien technology. Invisible to Council sensors and armed with weapons specifically designed to kill gods. They had trained in secret for decades, their crews drawn from volunteers who remembered the humiliation of imprisonment. Open a channel to all Council frequencies, Lim Jin ordered. Maximum broadcast power. The communication officer's hands flew across her controls. Channel open, sir. The entire galaxy is listening. Lim Jin stepped forward, his uniform bearing the insignia of a species that officially no longer existed. When he spoke, his words carried across light years to reach every civilization in the galaxy. This is Admiral Lim Jin of the Human Defense Force. 50 years ago, you judged us unworthy. You locked us away like dangerous animals, expecting us to learn humility and submission. His voice grew harder with each word. You were right about one thing we did learn. We learned that mercy is weakness, that peace is slavery, and that the only language you understand is force. In the council chambers on distant Nexus Prime, the three ancient species listened in growing alarm. The Zephyrian's crystal forms pulsed with angry light, while the collective's 1,000 voices began chattering in panic. Above them all, the architects flared brighter as they realized their greatest fear had come to pass. Impossible, rang out from the lead. Zephyrian, the barrier was impenetrable. They could not have. The transmission continued, cutting through their denials like a blade. For 50 years, you isolated us to teach us a lesson. Consider this our final exam. Across 12 star systems, space began to ripple. The first human ships materialized simultaneously, their stealth fields dropping to reveal sleek predators that had stalked their prey for half a century. The Zephyrian homeworld's orbital platforms detected the intrusion to late quantum disruptors, were already tearing through their crystal matrices like acid through glass. Commander Park Tu led the assault on Crystallis Prime, his squadron of destroyers moving with surgical precision. The alien defense grid tried to respond, massive crystal cannons swiveling to target the human ships, but their targeting systems failed as waves of quantum energy disrupted their molecular structure. Direct hit on the primary defense platform, his weapons officer reported. Their crystal armor is dissolving. The Zephyrian defenders watched in horror as their most powerful weapons simply fell apart. Structures that had stood for millions of years crumbled to dust as the quantum disruptors attacked the very bonds that held matter together. Their proud crystal cities began to crack and shatter, raining deadly fragments on the surface below. 3 systems away, Captain Yi Na unleashed hell on the collective's central node. The hive mind's greatest strength, their perfect neural connection, became their fatal weakness as EMP viruses raced through their network. The computer plague had been crafted by humanity's best programmers, designed to turn the collective's shared consciousness into a weapon against itself. The virus is spreading faster than expected, reported her cyber warfare officer, Lieutenant Ko Min. Their entire network is collapsing. Across the collective worlds, billions of linked minds screamed in unison as their connections were severed one by one. The hive mind that had existed for eons began to fragment, individual members suddenly, alone in their own heads for the first time in their lives. They stumbled and fell, overwhelmed by isolation they had never experienced. Meanwhile, in the energy fields of Architect Space, Colonel Onbo activated humanity's dimensional anchors. The ancient beings of pure energy found themselves suddenly trapped in physical form, their consciousness forced into matter for the first time in millions of years. They flickered and pulsed in confusion, no longer able to exist as thought alone. "Targets locked," called out his weapons officer. Kinetic rounds loaded. The irony was perfect, the most advanced species in the galaxy, brought low by simple bullets. The Architect's energy forms solidified into vulnerable flesh, and humanity's oldest weapons became their newest advantage. War Code Red had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy burned with fires that had not been seen for 1,000,000 years. Across dozens of star systems, the light of human warfare painted the void in brilliant colors as ancient powers fell before weapons they had never imagined. Species that had bowed to the Council for countless generations lifted their heads and watched in wonder as their oppressors finally met their match. Captain Go-Yoon pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the collective's primary hive complex, her breathing steady despite the chaos around her. Through her helmet display, she could see the neural pathways that connected every chamber in the massive structure. The building itself was alive, grown rather than built, its walls pulsing with the shared thoughts of 1,000,000,000 minds. "Team Alpha, move to the Queen Chambers," she whispered into her communicator. Her Marines spread out through the twisting corridors, their specially designed weapons humming with electronic warfare capabilities. Each rifle carried not bullets, but viruses, computer programs designed to attack the neural links that held the collective together. Behind her, Sergeant Kim Do checked his weapons charge. The young Marine had volunteered for this mission after losing his sister in the abandoned colonies. For him, every collective node they destroyed was a step closer to justice. "Ma'am, we're detecting massive network activity ahead. The Queen is trying to coordinate a defense." Go-Yoon smiled grimly. The collective's queens were the heart of their civilization, massive organic computers that processed the thoughts and memories of their entire species. Destroying even one would cripple their ability to function, but reaching them meant fighting through thousands of defenders. "Let them try," she replied, signaling her team forward. They've never faced an enemy that couldn't be absorbed into their network. The first collective drones appeared around the corner, their gray skin gleaming with moisture. They moved in perfect formation, their shared mind allowing them to coordinate without speech. But as Go-Yoon's Marines opened fire, the drone's greatest strength became their weakness. The virus-loaded rounds didn't just kill individual targets, they spread through the neural network, turning each death into a cascade of system failures. "Network disruption at 60%, reported her tech specialist, Corporal Lee A. The virus is spreading faster than they can contain it." 3 star systems away, Colonel Im-Soo watched through his ship's viewports as reality itself seemed to bend and twist. The dimensional anchors were working, forcing beings of pure energy into physical form for the first time in The architects flickered and pulsed in the void, their consciousness struggling to adapt to having actual bodies. "Sir, the energy readings are off the charts," his science officer called out. "They're trying to return to pure thought, but the anchors are holding them in place." Im-Soo nodded, checking his weapon systems. The irony was almost too perfect. The most advanced species in the galaxy reduced 2 targets for simple kinetic weapons. "All ships, commence firing. Let's teach these gods what mortality feels like." The human fleet opened fire with conventional rounds, bullets, and shells that would have seemed primitive to the architects just moments before. But trapped in physical form, the ancient beings found themselves vulnerable to weapons they had dismissed as crude. Their energy forms flickered and dimmed as metal tore through matter they were no longer able to shed. "Multiple hits confirmed," reported his weapons officer. "The architects they're actually dying." For the first time in millions of years, beings that had thought themselves immortal faced extinction. Their death screams echoed across dimensions, felt by every psychic species in the galaxy. As cosmic powers learned what it meant to be afraid, Admiral Park Jun stood on the bridge of his command ship, coordinating the war effort across a dozen fronts. Holographic displays showed human fleets striking at Council strongholds throughout the galaxy, each victory adding to a legend that grew with every passing day. At 60, he was old enough to remember the shame of the barrier's construction, young enough to savor the revenge now being served. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the Outer Rim worlds," his communication officer reported. "The Corvan Republic is requesting assistance against a Council enforcement fleet." Park Jun smiled. The Corvans had been one of the first species to suffer under Council rule, their merchant fleets destroyed for the crime of trading without permission. Now they were calling for help from the very species the Council had branded as dangerous primitives. "Dispatch Battle Group 7, he ordered. "Tell the Corvans that humanity remembers its debts." In the Outer Rim, where Council authority had always been absolute, whispers began to spread. Human ships were appearing like guardian angels, their sleek hulls bearing symbols of defiance that no one had seen for 50 years. They struck at Council enforcers with surgical precision, drove off tax collectors and occupation forces, then vanished back into deep space before reinforcements could arrive. On Torvan Prime, an enslaved mining world, workers looked up to see human fighters engaging the orbital platforms that had kept them prisoner for centuries. The platforms exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their debris raining down like falling stars. For the first time in generations, the mining crews realized they were free. Similar scenes played out across hundreds of worlds. The vegan traders who had been forced to surrender their profits to Council tax collectors watched. Human destroyers vaporized the collection ships. The agricultural worlds that had been stripped of their harvests to feed Council worlds saw their oppressors driven off by ships that bore the Earth's symbol. In 6 months of warfare, 3 ancient civilizations learned what it meant to face an enemy that fought not for conquest but for justice. The galaxy's new legends were written in the light of burning Council fleets. And for the first time in eons, hope began to spread among the oppressed. The neutral station Harmony had been built in the space between galaxies, far from any stars, light, as a place where even enemies could meet safely. Its creators had designed it to be perfectly balanced, with no species having advantage over another. Today, that balance would shift forever, as the once mighty Galactic Council faced the consequences of 50 years of arrogance. Admiral Lim Jin walked through corridors that had hosted peace talks for millennia, his boots echoing on floors that had never felt the tread of human feet. Behind him, his honor guard moved with the quiet confidence of soldiers who had won an impossible war. Captain Shinbo kept her hand near her weapon, not from fear but from habit. She had learned never to trust beings who ruled through fear. The meeting chamber was vast and circular, with floating platforms arranged around a central negotiation table. In the old days, dozens of species would have attended such a gathering, their representatives eager to curry favor with the Council. Today, the chamber felt empty, despite being full. Only the desperate came to surrender. The Zephyrian delegate sat across from the humans, its crystal form no longer pulsing with the proud blue light that had once filled Council chambers. The creature was ancient beyond human understanding, but defeat had dimmed its radiance to a pale flicker. Beside it, a handful of collective drones tried to maintain their composure, their gray faces showing cracks of individual thoughts. Sure, sign their network had been damaged beyond repair. Most pathetic of all was the architect representative, trapped in a crude robotic body that barely contained its energy essence. The being of pure thought had been forced into matter permanently, its voice coming through mechanical speakers that stripped away all majesty from its words. "Admiral Limjin," the Zephyrian began, its mental voice carrying exhaustion that resonated through the chamber. We acknowledge our miscalculation regarding your species' capabilities. Lim Jin remained standing, refusing to take a seat at the table. The gesture was deliberate. He would not sit as an equal with beings who had imprisoned his people like animals. Miscalculation, he repeated, his voice flat. Is that what you call 50 years of isolation? The death of millions in the colonies? You abandoned. The collective drones shifted uncomfortably. Without their perfect unity, they struggled to find words. We acted within established galactic law, one managed to say, its voice lacking the harmony that had once made their species so formidable. Your law, Captain Shinbo interjected from behind the Admiral. She stepped forward, her scarred face telling the story of humanity's struggle. Laws written by conquerors to keep their victims in chains. The Zephyrian's light flickered weaker. What are your terms for ending this ... conflict? Admiral Lim Jin placed a datapad on the table between them. The device looked primitive compared to the holographic displays the Council preferred, but its contents would reshape the galaxy. Full recognition of human sovereignty throughout all territories we currently control. Complete reparations for 50 years of economic isolation, and immediate dissolution of Council authority over any species that chooses to leave your protection. Impossible, the architect's mechanical voice crackled. The established order cannot be. The established order is dead. Lim Jin cut it off. Your fleets are broken. Your worlds are in ruins. Your authority exists only where we allow it to continue. Through the chamber's transparent walls, the wreckage of the Council's last fleet drifted in space. Mighty dreadnoughts that had once enforced galactic law now tumbled as debris, their hulls split open by human weapons. The sight served as a constant reminder of how completely the balance of power had shifted. And if we refuse your terms? The Zephyrian asked, though its dimming light suggested it already knew the answer. Captain Shinbo smiled, the expression holding no warmth. Around the chamber, holographic displays activated to show battle footage from across the galaxy. Council. Strongholds burning. Enforcement fleets scattered. Occupied worlds celebrating their liberation. The answer was written in fire across a dozen star systems. We could continue this war, Lim Jin said calmly. We could hunt down every Council ship, destroy every installation, scatter your species to the solar winds. We have the strength to do it. He paused, letting that threat sink in. But we won't. The alien delegates looked confused. In their experience, victorious species always demanded total submission from the defeated. The concept of restraint from a position of strength was foreign to them. We don't seek conquest, the Admiral continued. We seek justice. Not just for ourselves, but for every species your Council has oppressed for millennia. During our isolation, we learned something important. We fight best when we're protecting others, not when we're pursuing power. The datapad began displaying new information. Lists of species that had already pledged to join humanity's cause. Worlds that had thrown off Council rule the moment human fleets appeared in their systems. A galaxy-wide rebellion that had been waiting 50 years for someone strong enough to lead it. The Free Systems Alliance will guarantee the independence of any species that chooses freedom over oppression, Lim Jin announced. We will defend trade routes, protect colonies, and ensure that no single power ever again holds life or death, authority over entire civilizations. The Zephyrian's form flickered one last time before going completely darker, sign of absolute surrender. The collective drones lowered their heads in unison, while the trapped architect made mechanical sounds that might have been weeping. The treaty was signed in silence, witnessed by representatives of 100 liberated worlds. The Galactic Council's authority ended, not with grand speeches or ceremony, but with a quiet scratch of stylus on datapad. As the defeated Council members filed out of the chamber, Admiral Lim Jin remained at the table. The punishment was over. Humanity's real work building, a galaxy where freedom mattered more than order, had just begun.